straight away now to our expert, original thinking commentator who is with me for the rest of the program and who has prescient, immersive analysis covering the range of issues discussed on the show today. And for this, I'm joined now in the studio by the journalist, political affairs commentator, and a Rise News analyst, Dr. Constance Ikokwu. Thank you so much for coming in.
Delighted to be here. Was it me you were introducing? I almost didn't recognize myself.
Well, I certainly recognize the introduction. But let's start with Mikey Guinea, who is a former resident electoral commissioner for INEC. He was here earlier. And on the back of what's happened in Osun State, he's trying to reassure people about the efficacy of the technology that's being used, the beavers and the IREV. Were you reassured?
Absolutely. He was excellent. You know, he took his time, blow by blow, detailed explanation. The man sounded like he knew what he was talking about. He's experienced, very passionate, and really impressive. Really impressive. And he seemed to sort of, you know, give the impression that all is well. So what we are facing now is human errors, you know. But one thing that struck me from everything that he was talking about was the laws, the provisions that were enacted. He said only about 40 out of 91 provisions that were tendered to the National Assembly have been passed. And there have been resistance from politicians over so many years. It tells you that, you know, we still have a long way to go. And it seems that the politicians themselves do not want a transparent, functional, working, you know, credible system. That means everyone really has to fight this. You know, it's basically they're playing with our democracy and with the country.
Absolutely, and that's the point he made as well, that this has to be, that's why he put up that pyramid, that there's got to be the inputs, the determination of everyone to make sure that that democracy is preserved. And there have been calls, for example, for the conduct of penetration tests, mock simulation exercises using beavers and IREV. I know they talked about doing sort of mock exercises and so on because of the volume of information exchange, the sort of all the processing of data, the transmission and so on that would need to take place in a national election. So when you've got this problem happening, I mean, in Osun State, you start to worry about what's going to happen on the national level.
Yes, I was worrying when I was looking at the pyramid and what he was explaining. It sounded a bit complicated. So you see the powers leaving the Federal Capital Territory to the grassroots, the bottom. And in those places, he also explained that most of those people are temporary. They're not permanent staff. So they are trained. They might, you know, get a hang of things, or they may not get the hang of things. It means that, you know, we have to be careful because the elections are becoming highly litigious. We're becoming a really, really litigious country where the courts are now deciding the results of elections. They are no longer decided at the ballot boxes or at the polls. You know, it shouldn't be that. It should be that once you leave the election, the polls, or, you know, once you cast your ballot, when INEC releases the results, everything should be fine. So that is what we should be working towards as a country.
Absolutely. Let's move away from that to Terva Akase, who was the special advisor to Governor Ortom on media and publicity. He was reacting to the interview we had on Friday with Professor Usman Yusuf, in which he called the governor of Benue State the most irresponsible governor in Nigeria because of the law, or the anti-grazing law that he suggests was enacted by Governor Ortom. And very robust response there from Terva Akase.
Yes, everything is context. I think we should be doing things in context. You look back in 2021, 17 governors of the South decided that they were going to ban open grazing. Why is that? There was a journey before we got there. There had been senseless, wanton killings for so many years. You could make a perfectly reasonable argument that the herders, they're also being, you know, cattle rustled, and they're also facing dangers. At the same time, the farmers are being attacked. and whole villages were razed down. And you wake up in the morning, old women that have no guns to protect themselves are wailing, whole families completely wiped out. And this was not tenable. In addition to that, it didn't seem like the federal government was moving the needle, as in looking for solutions or permanent long-term solutions to this issue. So the governors had to decide, we need to do something about this, because the citizens of their states were asking questions and pushing them to do something. Eventually, not all the states enacted open grazing. Some did not. But we were coming from somewhere. The other thing is that when all this was happening, there were reports that some of these herders were coming from outside the country and actually maybe terrorists and not herders. Because in this country, we have lived, for centuries with Fulani herdsmen traveling from one point of the country to the other peacefully, no problems. All of a sudden, within some years, you had, hordes and gangs of people coming into the country with guns, machetes, killing people. So what is the actual problem?
Yeah. It seemed untypical.
Exactly. So is it politically motivated? You had reports that some politicians brought in people to use during elections, and then after the elections, they had to survive, they had to do something, and then the kidnapping started, and then the ransom, and then the making money, it became a business. What do you expect people to do? So there are sympathies on both sides, on both camps, but it looks like everybody is tone deaf. Nobody wanted to hear each other.
Right.
And then the federal government, the language they used when they were trying the solution, the cattle colony that was suggested, the language, the style, the lack of proper communication, it fueled an already problematic situation.
Dr. Constance Ikokwu, Arise News analyst, journalist, political affairs commentator, always a pleasure to have you in here. Thank you very much indeed. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.